I'm so glad you're here. This is a replay of a live training I did inside the OTs for Pelvic Health Facebook group with Lindsey Vestal, and I wanted to make sure that everyone gets access to it. Pelvic health is such an incredibly fulfilling specialty, and it's growing so much. I've been training OT since 2018, and my goal is to have over 10,000 OTs trained by the year 2030. I'm so glad you're here learning about this specialty. I hope that you can join us in the OTs for Pelvic Health Facebook group with me, Lindsey Vestal. I will link to the group below in the show notes and description. Thank you so much.
Hello. Welcome to OT Empower Hour. I am thrilled to be joining you for the first OT Empower Hour of 2023. And I am kicking it off with a bang. We are starting off with one of my favorite pelvic health topics, which is that overlap between the nervous system and the pelvic floor. It jazzes me up like no other topic. Before we get started, welcome. We've had so many new people join us. We have over 125 replays available just on the pinned announcement section at the top of the page. So if you feel like binging and really getting your full of all OT pelvic health topics, just click on that and check out the replays. I always start these topics off with icebreaker. It's kind of selfish. It lets me know you're here. Facebook doesn't let me know you're here unless I see a comment come in, and it absolutely invigorates me also to know that you're here. So today's icebreaker question is, when you read your news, do you prefer to listen to it, or do you prefer to actually read it? It could be newspaper, old-fashioned style. Shout out to the people who like that still. I do. I love getting my Sunday New York Times. Or do you prefer to actually listen to it? So NPR, your local radio station, whatever the case may be, is your preference to listen to your news or read your news? I'm going to put in read. Let me know what you think. And if you're on replay, you are not off the hook. I want to know what you have to say as well. So for the month of January, I have decided to really lean into all things nervous system and all things pelvic health. And so for the month of January, I am going to be sharing every single OT Empower Hour, every single week. I'm going to be sharing some of my very favorite exercise routines for the nervous system. So make sure to not just join today, but pop back in every Thursday at noon for the month of January, where I dive even deeper into the specific exercises that I use. And the whole idea around this is we give exercise routines for the physical body, right? Why not for the nervous system? Why not set the standard of a companion of ways that we can nurture our clients' pelvic floor by not only giving them physical exercise routines, but let's give them nervous exercise routines. So that's what we're going to be diving into today and every day this week. Just wanted to also let you know that if this kind of stuff geeks you out and you love it just as much as I do, myself and Laura DeRosier are actually putting together a certification for occupational therapists in pelvic health to be trauma informed. And that is actually going to be a live event. It's going to be a 6-month-long nurturing program culminating in a live event this year. If you want to know more about that, I'm going to throw in the interest list in the comment section, and we would love to have you. It is one of a kind. There is nothing else out there like it, and I'm so thrilled about that. All right, so let's get into today's topic. Don't forget to answer the question, do you prefer to listen to news or read your news? All right, so to kick this topic off, I want to talk about something that I refer to as resourcing practices. So Deb Dana, who writes a ton about the polyvagal theory, refers to this as resilience routines, which I also love. And she describes resilient routines as practices that simply support your client's autonomic patterns and fit their unique personal needs around feeling nourished, increasing their capacity to respond to life's challenges with resilience, right? And feeling this way, feeling that ability to respond to life when you have challenges is paramount when you're experiencing a pelvic floor concern, right? And this could be anything. This could be leaking. This could be painful intimacy, urinary frequency. Frankly, it doesn't matter. Your pelvic health clients will benefit from participating in any sort of resilience routine or, as Deb Dana says, resilience routine or exercise routine for the nervous system, right? Resourcing practices. So Deb goes on to further describe resilience routines as something closely related to the ventral vagal state. So we've talked about this many times in OT Empower Hour. If you go back to our replays, I've got a ton on polyvagal, on interoception, and on ventral vagal. This is our parasympathetic state, right? This is our place of safety. This is our place of homeostasis. And as you build resilience, instead of responding to any sort of challenge with this sort of like automatic move into survival response, you're actually able to take a step back and think about it with more flexibility, right? And when you're pulled into that survival response, rather than getting stuck there and not being able to see past it, you're able to return to that state of ventral vagal regulation. So resilience builds, your capacity for flexibility of a variety of responses deepens. And resilience is essentially a flexibility of the nervous system, right? An ability to respond to life and to move through the various nervous system states without getting stuck or really set in any one state for an extended period of time. And these resourcing strategies are different from coping mechanisms because coping mechanisms are often this unconscious attempt to soothe a stress response after it's already happened. So it's kind of like a Band-Aid that doesn't address the deeper root of stress. Whereas resourcing practices or resilience routines are preemptive, right? They are helping to expand your client's window of tolerance. I love that term, window of tolerance, helping them to be more resilient no matter what happens in their life. So you can think of these practices like exercise routines for the nervous system. And when you do them regularly over time, your body is prepared when something happens that triggers stress. Now, most of my clients really benefit from learning these practices and practicing them over and over again until they start to become second nature so that when they need them, they're easy to use, right? So it's like you don't want to learn a new skill when stress is high. You want to be able to have muscle memory and tap back into that place that you've practiced, right? So initially, some of these exercises may seem redundant, they may seem boring. I've had clients say, how the heck is this related to my urinary frequency? Like, why? Why are we doing this? So I'm going to take a second and stop for those of you joining us, either live or on replay. Have you heard this before? Have you had clients when you've tried to give them any sort of nervous system tool? Have they ever asked you that? Have you ever wondered, is this boring to them? Is this unrelated to them? Like, what are their thoughts as I'm going through this with them? Have you ever had that experience? Type it in the comments if you have. And if you're on replay, of course, we're dying to hear from you as well. Because this is something that honestly the students that I mentor and the students that have go through both OT Pioneers and OT Elevate, my 2 online programs, say this to me. Like, how can I bring this to my client and have them not feel that it's unrelated? So this is a really good question. And I have found that always bringing our clients into their education of why, what our motivation is, why we're giving them this work, really helps buy-in, really helps them understand your thought process. And they will start to see that over time, these practices yield incredible benefits for them. And as their nervous system gets used to sort of what we call like the cycles of activation and deactivation, clients will naturally really know what to do in stressful situations to bring more calmness, more coherence. They will really start to stay inside that window of tolerance where before they may have become overwhelmed, they may have shut down, they may have been frozen, they may have been really, really stressed. So remember that these resourcing practices are going to be so unique to every single one of your clients, right? So what's resourcing and regulating for the nervous system of one of your clients could actually be dysregulating for another. And what works at one point could also change for your client over time. So we're encouraging for them to remain curious, for them to remain flexible as they're creating these resilience routines, not only for the first time, but over time. Some common resources could be a pet. We actually just got a new cat ourselves. We have adopted an 8-year-old cat, and it has been a serious resource for me and for my whole family. It has been so calming. It could be a hobby. It could be a specific type of music. It could be a breathing practice. It could be simply going somewhere by yourself and spending some time alone. Oops. Sorry about that. My light just fell. Hopefully the light is still okay. But my ring light just fell, so sorry for that loud noise. It can also be temporal. So I've had clients that times of the day are their resource, their resilience resource, right? So maybe you notice or they notice that they're more creative, more alive in the morning instead of the evening. So in this way, you can help them design a resilience routine that happens in the morning when they're already naturally feeling like themselves. So they've had some inclination to do some movement, to do some gentle yoga practice. So we suggest, let's do that in the morning, right? And if you're having some trouble coming up with ideas for either yourself or your client, a great question to ask to get a sense of what individually makes them tick is something like, what in your life makes you feel most like yourself? When do you feel most like yourself? You can even ask them to kind of travel back in time a little bit and say, think about a time when you felt most like yourself. What were you doing, right? All of these questions can really help your client get to that sense of what their nervous system finds resourceful. Your client actually already has these resources innately built into their nervous system. And they actually know what it takes to feel inspired and to feel alive. And your role as their occupational therapist guide is to help them become conscious of these resources and intentionally create any sort of practice that incorporates more of these resources into their daily lives, right? We're not waiting till they get to that point of incredible stress. We're asking them to build it in so that it becomes a resource for them when they need it, and it's innate. It's built into their tool set, if you will. Amanda's joining us. She says she loves that question. I'm so glad. I have really felt, Amanda, that has helped so much when a client can't figure out what their resilience practices are. And I'm not expecting them to answer it on the spot. Sometimes they have to go away and think about it. And that is beautiful. I love that. I love that even more because they're really thinking and pausing throughout their day to figure out what makes them feel most like themselves. So you can also guide and support them in exploring new resources, things they've never thought about when they're struggling. Because having awareness of what you're wondering could be a resource will really help your clients cultivate agency and puts them in this place of in their own lives that they know how to better support their own regulation and their own resilience. And I love that. I love that. The intention behind helping your clients to cultivate a resourcing and resilience practice is really to help their nervous systems to move beyond what we talked about a few moments ago, which was coping mechanisms, right? They can help our clients soothe their nervous system in the moment, in that moment. But I don't know if you've noticed this, but it can keep them in that loop. Because very often coping mechanisms are not sustainable long term, right? And our goal with the pelvic floor and the nervous system is to really help our clients cultivate routines and practices that they can use every single day or at least multiple times a week to expand, right, that window of tolerance we talked about and to promote that deeper sense of I can handle whatever happens. After all, right, we are what we regularly practice. And if we're regularly practicing coping mechanisms in reaction to any stressful event life happens, whether it's related to the pelvic floor or not, that's what our nervous system has to work with. But over time, with practice and patience, the resourcing practices that your client starts to consider becomes a habit, right? And your client may or may not notice the impact it has on their lives right away, but we talk with them, right? We, just like we in the beginning may have had to teach them that it may seem a little mundane, it may seem unrelated to the work, why they came to see us, we're talking with them about trusting in that inherent wisdom of their body. And this new, healthier habit has a positive impact on why they've come to see us for pelvic floor therapy. And that incorporating this new resilience routine will do what I call like crowding out the old pattern as the new neural pathways are built around this healthier habit, right? Habit stacking. And in this way, your client starts to use their own internal resources, their attention, their focus, and their physiology, right? Whatever it is your client needs. It could be connecting with a partner, connecting with a pet, rest, movement, right? They're naturally going to adopt this more and more over time. And I don't know about you, Amanda, or anyone else joining us live, but this really has a cumulative effect on their life and their patterns of behavior. What was working before, those coping mechanisms are no longer considered because they may see that their underlying needs weren't being met. And that shift that they were wanting and craving wasn't there. Amanda says definitely. Awesome. So I want to wrap this up by saying here are a few things to keep in mind as you start creating this resourcing practice for yourself or for your clients, especially if this is a new practice for you. Keep in mind that the resourcing exercises can be inward or outwardly focused. And ideally, there's a bit of both. I have found most of my clients have benefited when it's a bit of both. So inward practices include somatic practices like touch, tapping, movement, breath is one of my favorite ones, sound, and even stillness. Inward practices are things that are a little bit more reflective, maybe something like meditation or journaling. And then outward practices could be spending time, quality time with others, spending time in nature, creating rituals within your home. For instance, it gets dark pretty early here, not as early as it did in Paris, but here in Flagstaff, it gets dark around like 5:30. and in Paris it'd be like 4 or 4:30. And I light a candle every single night, and I pick a new candle, one that has a scent that I'm really craving, and that's what we do. That's part of my ritual that I really look forward to. Other things could be a little bit more creative, like art, right? And again, there should be a mix of these two practices. So choose 2 or 3 that really remain constant and accessible enough to be practiced daily, right? So we don't want to set our clients up for something that is so unreachable or unattainable, or they have to drive an hour or 2, right? Something simple. One of my clients would love going into the shower after a very long day or a stressful experience with their children, and they had a spray bottle of their favorite essential oil, and they would just mist 20 times that spray bottle, and the door would be closed and that scent would just be so profusive in her bathroom. And that was so easy. She kept that bottle on the side of the bathtub. She took 5 minutes, and that was her resilience routine. Wendy says, I love that I'm learning things I can do and teach. Yes, that's the best, Wendy. The best is when we're learning ourselves, and that enables us to speak with so much more authenticity with our clients and to help them explore what routine is individual for them. Because like I said a few moments ago, what can be regulating for one could actually be up-regulating for one, could be down-regulating for another. It's very, very individual. And again, I love that. I love that about our profession. I love that about pelvic health. We're really always treating that client in front of us, and we're always coming back to that wisdom in their body and showing them how they know, showing how they just need to take out that flashlight and see more of it. And the more they take it out, that brighter that flashlight becomes. And that is so rewarding. So we are encouraging our clients to try on new practices, new routines, if maybe the ones that they've tried aren't working, right? So don't get discouraged, Wendy, Amanda, anyone else joining us, live or replay, if maybe they come back to you after the first week and they're like, I didn't really do it. I didn't really like it. I thought I was going to like it. That is more the norm than not. And I actually love when they feel comfortable to come back and say that, because it's an opportunity to have a conversation. What about it didn't work? What aspects of it initially intrigued you? What do you want to do more of, right? And then I also talk about giving it at least a month or 2 of practice before making significant adjustments. Of course, that's very individual, right? If the client just like had an aversive reaction, we're not going to stick with it for a month. But if routines take time. Routines take time. Wendy says, better than faking it and we move on. You're totally right. You're totally right. And it is really normal to feel bored or even frustrated by some of the practices, right? And it's common for your clients to wonder if they're working. And this is part of that process, right? This is part of that conversation for buy-in, for them to understand why the heck we're talking about taking a shower with essential oil when they've come to see you because they're leaking fecal material every time they laugh, cough, or sneeze, right? This can seem disjoint. So part of our educational process is to help them understand why this is valuable and that it's very normal for them to feel a little bit of frustration or boredom. But on the other side of it is an incredible tool of ventral vagal regulation that will serve your client so far past any pelvic floor symptom that they're experiencing. So it's going to help them why they're coming to see you. It's going to help you when they may get fired down the road. God forbid, a loved one is lost. These resourcing tools carry over into all the aspects of their life that bring on stress. And I don't know about you, but I find that as an occupational therapist, there is nothing better that when the tools can multiply and serve all of the areas of our clients' lives. So I'd love to know if you have any questions for me. I also want to remind you, in case you didn't catch the very beginning of when we started here, that over the month of January, I am going to be sharing my favorite resourcing tools, my favorite nervous system exercise routines. So today was kind of the beginning of that, but stick with me for the month of January because it's going to be all things nervous system. I'm going to dive more deeply into my very, very favorite tools, and I invite you to bring any of your favorite tools to the conversation as well.